Hey everybody, welcome to Tiger Tanker Studios. So today we're going to talk about boots. Thumper Talk recently had a thread discussing what are the most popular motocross boots in the industry. And the top two names are Sidi and Gaerne. Alpine Stars came third. Well, I have quite a bit of experience in wearing Gaerne and Sidi boots, and I wanted to describe some of the features and benefits of each manufacturer so that maybe it's easier for you to decide what kind of boot you want to buy. So the two big names are the CDI Crossfire SRS series. This is the 2. There is a 3 out now, and this one I have been wearing for 3 or 4 years. I've gone through 2 or 3 pairs. The flagship motocross boot for Gaerne is the SG12. I had a pair of SG11s, wore those for 2 or 3 years, liked them, and they wore out, and so it was time for a new pair. My big motivation for looking for new boots now has been to find a boot that can handle the bad weather and nasty terrain of the Pacific Northwest. I broke several bones in my left foot a little over a year ago wearing this boot. I kicked a rock right about here, doing about 20 miles an hour, broke the pinky toe on my left foot, the metatarsal behind it, and possibly another one. Very painful, and I was wearing a sandal for about a month. So I realized, unfortunately, as much as I like these boots, I don't think they're quite stout enough for riding in the Pacific Northwest, where there's a lot of roots, a lot of rocks, and the potential of kicking one of those at some speeds is really high. So I really wanted to transition to a boot that had a steel toe to it. Well, Sidi makes pretty much the same boot in a all-terrain version. That would be the Sidi Crossfire without the SRS. The SRS is the sole replacement system. You can actually unscrew these soles and replace them with a new sole or a different kind of sole. You can put a Supermoto sole on there, a standard sole, or an Enduro sole on there that has extra traction to it. The extra traction one provides such good traction, your foot may not move. And in my case, that led to a ruptured Achilles in Moab as I planted my foot on the slick rock, and then all the weight and my body's weight wound up with a ruptured Achilles. So I've had 2 serious injuries with this boot. And as much as I like it, it's just not in the cards for me anymore. This is a fantastic boot for somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of risk of kicking things. It's a great boot, and one thing about this boot is it has tremendous feel. You buy these, you put them on, they feel good. And you get very good control of your toes for braking and gear shifting. Very responsive boot. It doesn't suit what I really need. I'm going to need a bit of a stiffer, more protective boot. So the Sidi Crossfire 3 is a boot that has the steel toe. It has what's called a welted sole. The sole here is actually stitched on, okay? It's not glued on. So the chances of this sole ripping off are none. You may wear it out, but the compound of this sole is outstanding. The metal, steel toe part here, can that come off? Yeah, it probably will. I'll give it a couple years. The construction of the leathers and the materials here is absolutely outstanding. All of the pieces here are very well designed, and they're also very stable. The construction of this boot right here is super impressive. A lot of neat features to it. It has a hyperextension feature to it that you can really feel. So the protection is fantastic here in the shin area. The buckles are not going to get ripped open or off while you're riding. I see that a bunch with people that ride in the Alpine Star boots that I've ridden with. But this thing has this new feature as part of the 3 versus the 2, is this backwards hyperextension feel, and you can feel it, and it doesn't restrict your movement either, but it's a nice added safety feature. But quality of craftsmanship here is absolutely top of the line. So how does Gaerne's boot compare? Well, also very good construction. If there's one thing I do like a lot more about this boot than this boot, the speed buckles here are a little bit easier to adjust. Again, a welted sole here, supposed to be an upgraded compound in the rubber sole here. I have seen people that have worn this sole out relatively quick that are very active riders. Nice steel toe. It's got a good comfortable fit to it, but I bought these and I put them on for a NAR ride, and they felt pretty stiff. So I do recommend, if you buy these, wear them around the house or the office for a day or two and get a little bit of feel in them. I think these things are going to take about 3 rides to really feel comfortable in. My SG11s was a pretty similar boot, and after a while it felt really comfortable. It's not got the feel that that SRS CD has. It just doesn't. But it's a pretty darn good boot. Now, I do think the quality of construction is just a little bit better in the CD. But what's really a big deal is this boot cost me $475. Bought it domestically, cannot find it at a discounted price overseas. But the CD line you can buy in Germany or in Holland from the online retailers. I bought mine from chromeburner.com in Holland. Took 10 days for delivery, no shipping costs, and no customs. $475, $375, $100 less, and I think this is actually a slightly better boot. You know, everyone has their preferences. Some people say, well, the CDs are too narrow for me, the Gaernes fit me better. Honestly, if you put these two boots on, you don't know which one's which. They fit identically. The toe box is roomier and bigger than that of this boot. This is a skinny foot's boot. But both of these here leave ample toe room. I'm a true 13, and in a 13, I need to wear a true boot sock with these. And that's good because a boot sock with a little bit of toe room in there is going to give you a little bit of a cushion zone from an impact with a rock or a root and keep you from breaking bones in your foot. Okay, so I'm good for boots for a few years because I still got these. These are relatively new, and I got these too, so great. But I do ride in the Pacific Northwest sometimes when it's really, really nasty. When it's wet and it's raining and all that, none of these boots are waterproof. And anybody that says they are is a liar. These things will let water in, and worst of all, it'll generally keep the water in there. So when it's really nasty and wet out, I've been wearing these. These are the CD Adventure Boot Gore-Tex. You're like, well, there's not enough protection in that boot. You know, it's 70 or 80% of this boot, and I generally ride it in a place where I'm riding all the time, so I'm pretty familiar with the territory there. The nice part is, of course, it's Gore-Tex. If I wear Gore-Tex pants and I put a rubber band as a bit of a gaiter around here, I can ride pretty much all day without my feet getting wet, which is pretty nice. The boot becomes very, very comfortable. These are good enough to be walking boots or hiking boots after a short break-in period of time. But I ride a lot. These boots made it 2 years before they started leaking, and they show their wear. So right now these make for good trail building boots. Here's the brand new boot. So very supple now, and this boot, you know, in a couple of rides it'll break in. So bad weather boot, CD Gore-Tex ADV boot, normally $550 in the United States. I got it for $275 from Chrome Burner. Again, no taxes, no shipping costs. Fantastic bargain. Great quality. Now, what's going to go wrong with these boots? I ride a lot. I ride 100 to 120 days a year in some pretty nasty conditions. Constantly cleaning gear. they're all getting muddy. I got to spray them off, got to run them through a dryer and all that kind of stuff. With this boot here, on my SG11, the pivot broke after 2 years. I shipped them into Pro Moto Boot in Minneapolis, and they repaired it for a reasonable cost. Pro Moto Boot in Minneapolis is the recommended repair company for Gaerne, and very happy with their service. I've heard that this rubber coating here is potentially a little suspect, and it kind of looks it. So this boot, I think I'll like it, but you know, I wouldn't expect for a normal rider, it's probably going to get 4 to 6 years out of this before it starts falling apart. And in my opinion, that's a pretty good deal. If you're expecting more than that, I think you're being unrealistic. This boot here, what happens is after 2 years, this is not a welted sole. It is not sewn in. It is glued in, and this will separate from the upper. That happened to 2 pairs of mine. I had to ship them back to Pro Moto Boot and get them glued back on. The sole here, the compounds that they use for these things these days, the rubber compound is of such a high quality that the chances of you wearing this sole out and needing the replacement are pretty minimal. The life expectancy of this part of the boot and the upper part of the boot are about the same. So I'm not really sure what the real big value of this replaceable sole stuff is. Parts. If something breaks on these CD boots, at Revzilla.com, one of the big national retailers of motorcycle products online in the United States, you can buy this piece, this piece, this piece. Virtually every piece that you see here that has screws, bolts, buckles can be bought online for a reasonable cost. I did an internet search for the Gaerne. I couldn't find the same. And in the past, I have lost buckles or needed replacement parts, and it's really convenient to be able to just go click, click, click with Revzilla and get the replacement parts. You can even buy different colors to match up your bike if you wanted to change the colors of the buckles and things like that. So kind of cool. Anyway, I hope my experience in the past with these boots and knowledge about footwear, I worked at Foot Locker for 5 years when I was younger, I hope this helps you pick an ideal boot for yourself that you're real happy with. I will say that the sizes of both the Gaernes and the CDs ran pretty true to size. I'm a 13. I normally wear Asics tennis and running shoes, and they're very comparable. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Have a wonderful day.